Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Underneath. I'm going to do a 10 good minutes today, and I'm here at home. It's rainy outside and cold, but I like cold June days. It's really special because come July and August, we're going to be sweating our tuchuses off. And, not a huge fan of the hot and humid. So, anyway, here we go. Today, I wanted to talk to you about these sort of convergent issues of uh, the whole artificial intelligence thing, the AI and the artificial general intelligence push, and these alleged advances that are coming down the pipe, especially with uh, ChatGPT and Claude and Grok and all these things, and the predictions. I did a video a couple of weeks ago about the predictions that were made on Ross Douthat's Interesting Times video. So you should check that out to sort of get my general sense of what may be coming. I think there's probably something like that is coming, but how serious is this going to disrupt things? And one of my primary objections to this discussion about UBI is around AI is the sort of casual way in which people talk about UBI, universal basic income, as a kind of solution to the disruptions. And I have deep reservations about it. But another issue that is bubbling up in the ferment is this issue of assisted suicide. And apparently, as of the recording of this video, the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, has a bill going to her desk, or it's on her desk, legalizing euthanasia. And that's disconcerting to me. Not because I want to see people suffer, um, but because I recognize the inherent attack on the dignity of the human person by allowing and eventually forcing or compelling people to make the decision to leave the planet, die, as it were. And of course, I'm reminded of one of my all time favorite novels written by P.D. James. The name of the novel is called The Children of Men. It was written in 1992. And unlike her usual fare, which is she tended to write mystery novels, etc. This one is a kind of dystopian sci-fi novel. And the conceit of the novel is about 2 decades from the start of the novel, um, human fertility has fallen off a cliff. So much so that no human being has been born for 2 decades. And we see the societal breakdown and all that that entails. And they don't really know why that the human species has been unable to reproduce. She, I think, smartly leaves that little detail out. But one of the aspects of the novel is that due to this sort of societal breakdown, a kind of authoritarian government kind of shows up and moves into place, and there's all kinds of mass immigration problems, and you don't really quite know if the walls, if the fences are meant to keep people in or to keep people out. It's a little unclear. At least my memory's a little hazy and fuzzy. But at any rate, one of the things that the government issues is this drug called quietus. And quietus is something that is given for free to every citizen, that when you are feeling like it's time to go, you can just sort of do the quick, quiet quit, as we might say. You just check out. You take quietus on your own terms, of course, quote unquote, and you can sail off into the sunset. And, the novel is extremely haunting because it raises questions that are eerily prescient in this 2025 moment. Questions about fertility, questions about meaning, questions about the economy, and the way in which all of these things are kind of intermingled. Now, there is a movie that was done, gosh, about 20 years ago now. That is very good. It's very different. It's in my head, I kind of treat them as two different things. Um, and the film is really a spectacular work. But it's different, I think, than the novel. I think the novel has a kind of depth about the cravings of the human heart, and the connection of that craving for meaning, the connection with that and um, fertility, um, childbirth and child rearing, and what is it like to live in a world that no longer um, can hear the sound of kids at recess. Really terrifying sequence in the novel in which the fugitives are on the run, trying to preserve. What emerges is that a woman gets pregnant, and they don't really know why or how. Well, they know how, of course, but they don't know why all of a sudden she gets pregnant. So they're trying to preserve it from the authorities, and because apparently the authorities like the fact that they can kind of control the society. And fertility is some kind of threat to that, which is also an interesting moment that I just realized. But uh, quietus is one of the ways in which the population is kind of eased off from getting sort of too rambunctious. And we are coming face to face. Yeah, I think the push for assisted suicide. They call it MAID, the MAID program up in Canada right now. But the push for assisted suicide and euthanasia, I think, is part and parcel of this other push in the region of artificial intelligence and what that's going to do to disrupt the economy. And so these people who are busy growing the AI have blithely suggested that, well, in the event of artificial general intelligence and the massive disruptions to employment, will the government will just take care of everyone vis-a-vis universal basic income. And as I've said in that prior video, I think that's incredibly naive to suggest that just giving everybody a certain kind of an allowance will be enough to satisfy the deepest longings of the human heart. And so uh, we have already seen a massive increase in deaths from despair. And I think that if these advancements in AI are as radical and powerful as they are being heralded by people who know stuff much more than me, I teach poetry for a living, but I have been following this story closely. They seem to suggest that many, many people will find themselves without a job. And of course, the haunting phrase from Scrooge pops into my head. What are we going to do with the surplus population? It reminds me of something that Yuval Harari talks about, these extra people. And so they are going to have to be somehow plied and made less restless in the advent of the meaning desert we are waltzing into. People talk about the meaning crisis, John Vervaeke and others, and I think they're basically right. And I think the advent of AI and AGI and UBI are going to put they're going to put the meaning crisis in hyperdrive. I think we are naive to think otherwise. Now, on the one hand, like, what would be better? I would love to sort of sit around and learn a new language, read all those books that are on my stack that I never quite get to, all those old books that I know I have to read, that I can't quite find the time to do it. I would welcome that kind of leisure time in the Joseph Pieper sense, but I fear that no longer if I no longer feel needed just as a husband and a father, as a man, I wonder how long I could sustain this kind of perpetual vacation. I think it's naive to think that we would all handle it well. Heck, I get restless after about a week of vacation. what next, what next, what next. And so now perhaps that's just an impoverished soul of my own, but I suspect that we do find meaning and purpose in providing for our families, um, and being a productive member of society. I mean, what does it mean to not be a productive member of society? My sense, of course, is that those who are busy not so much building these AIs or passing the kind of legislation that would make assisted suicide easy and normal, I wish they had a better sense of human nature. I suspect that they would maybe think twice about what they're steering us into. And so, for those of us who don't have any kind of control over these massive superstructures, the birth of AI, the growth of AI, the destruction of the economy as we have known it for a very long time, um, what are we going to do? Um, what is our purpose? Now, as as a Catholic, you know, it never changes. And I know this from my Protestant brothers and sisters that they have their own versions of this, and my Orthodox brothers and sisters have their versions of this, which is basically to know, love, and serve the Lord in this life and to be with Him forever in the next. And that checks, that holds. And so, but that, of course, is an increasingly small percentage of the population. And so, what happens to the fabric of society when these meaning bearing pillars are stripped away or taken away? These are, in my estimation, are kind of load bearing walls. And UBI has a kind of bad track record. We can call it a kind of new acronym, but this is essentially a form of socialism or communism. And I don't like the track record. We're more than meat. So for me, and my call to action, I guess, for you is subscribe to this channel, hit like button, subscribe to my Substack, all of those sorts of things. But like, well, what is my responses? Well, I think it's to continue to be the bearers of the wisdom of meaning and purpose for your immediate circles, for your spouse and for your children and for your cousins and your nieces and your nephews. Be someone who cultivates wisdom, because whatever happens in this sort of superstructure, which I don't have much say over one way or the other, I guess I could call my congressman or woman, but that doesn't really seem to work either. It looks like these systems are aimed where they want to be aimed, and I don't really have much control over that. But why do you live? What is it for? Who am I? Is there a God? What should I do with this life? Now, that part of the question we tend to answer practically, but what are we to do with this life, especially if those modes of being are practically stripped from us? Getting a job, earning a living, doing these kinds of things that we, I think, take for granted on some level. Well, what if all that stuff is stripped away? What then? And so, perhaps this is too pithy and too winsome, but I think poetry and worship and prayer and meditation and contemplation, these are the things which we long for, even if we don't have the language even if we don't have the practices. So we can start now. Nothing's stopping any of us from reading an old book, getting into these kind of alternative habits that are technically useless, at least useless in the sense that the economy finds an activity useful or useless. Going and reading the Odyssey or Dante's Inferno or the Purgatorio or the Paradiso or Beowulf or Hard Times, Bleak House, Crime and Punishment, The Great Gatsby, The Sun Also Rises, A Light in August, the Snopes trilogy, Children of Men. That's useless. It doesn't do anything for the economy, really, especially if you buy a used book. I suppose it helps a used bookseller stay afloat for another month or a day or an hour. But it doesn't do anything for the economy, but it does something for you. It builds you out. It increases your metaphor base, if you will. Because wisdom is not just an idea. Wisdom are those kind of experiments of life that have worked and have been passed down. So read an old book. It's what I always say. That's my call to action to you. If you like this stuff, please do all the subscribe things, leave a comment, share this video. But if if the ship that we are a passenger in is being steered into some dangerous territory, prepare yourself now. Develop some habits. Think of yourself as being more than merely a cog in the machine. All right, take care. God bless. Godspeed. Be well.